Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And what do I mean by that when I say that? I mean, I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to put the right information out there from the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take all that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. All right, we are back. It is Monday, you guys. Freight Monday, whatever you want to call it. You know, I don't know. People make up all these acronyms, but you know, it's gonna be a great week this week. For those of you, Steven, bro, you completely threw me off there. Oh, man. Papa Freight says, hope no one has a case of the Mondays. Let's go. Office Space reference. I have lost my swing line stapler, though, Steven, if you have any idea where I can get another one. Tracy St. Clair, good morning to you watching over on YouTube as always. Corey Buchan, happy Monday. Flo, what is going on? Good morning to you. Kyan Johnston, good morning. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, so this week, going to be a busy week. We'll be in studio here till Wednesday, and then Wednesday afternoon, I'm flying out to San Diego. I'm going to be going live at the Technovations Conference out there on Thursday and Friday. I got a couple of guests locked in for that. But yeah, we got some articles we're going to break down here today. And then, but before I'm losing my track of thought. But then, yeah, I fly back Friday, and then I'll be back in Houston the following. I'm flying out there this coming Sunday because I'm going to be there for the NMFTA Cybersecurity Conference, and I'll be going live from there as well. I'm going to be having some guests at that conference. So your boy's going to be out on the road, the Freight Coach Road Show, as I like to put it out there. You'll see me blaze orange, backwards hat as normal. If you guys are going to be out in San Diego for Technovations or at the NMFTA conference out in Houston early next week, hit me up. I would love to hang out. I'd love to meet up, chat. Maybe we'll do a little impromptu interviews out there as well. You know, I got my little side kit or whatever you want to call it, road kit, excuse me, about what I bring out there on the road and everything. So yeah, we'll do that. But we got some good articles we're going to break down today. Let me see here. Michelle LeBlanc, what is up? Happy Monday to you, you guys. If you guys ever need any help with your content, hit up Michelle, Drop and Hook. She's the best of the best in the industry, you guys. April Maroney, good morning to you. Move that freight Monday. I love it. Stephen Thompson, good morning. All Thomas Weirden, freight morning, y'all. Let me see here. Robert's coming in. CDN Freight Broker. Hit him up on YouTube. If you guys are watching on YouTube, drop him a follow. Robert is a great guy. He may or may not be on the podcast here coming up, but he's got a question, and I'm going to hit that up right away. Do you believe you're utilizing all features of our TMS? Does it streamline your operations? You can save it for Friday Q&A. I'm going to answer it right now, Robert, because I think that there are a ton of features in every TMS that aren't utilized out there. And I'm finding that, I mean, just like with you, for me, it's one of those situations that I want to like maximize my time, right? And I think that there's a lot of features inside of TMSs that we are not using at all to help streamline our operations. And I'm looking to get better with that, man. If I'm being completely honest with you, I need to get a lot better with it and find out, because I find myself bogged down in some of the menial tasks that are out there. And for me, I think that we could, when it comes down to your technology partners as a whole, you should be constantly assessing what the true capabilities are and always reaching out, right? I think like as a, if you're utilizing technology of any sort and you have any questions about capabilities and everything else, you should always be reaching out to find out what does the full suite of services look like? Because, as technology is supposed to make our lives easier. And I think that a lot of us are unaware of what it really does as a whole. So that's what I would do, my man. Thomas says, make sure you check out the Shark Tank. Yes, I would agree with that, Thomas. The Shark Tank event, I'm really looking forward to that. I had really enjoyed it last year when it was when Technovations was here in Phoenix. And, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who is really just trying to figure out this whole thing in business, I just love learning from others and seeing how they present and everything else. And for me, I really enjoy that event, and I'm glad that they're bringing it back out there. Steve Hunt says that is fundamental with any software package. Most people learn just what they need to get by. Very true. Michelle says, I think I heard once that most companies are only using 20% of any technology they buy. I don't have a source handy, but definitely checks out with my real world experience. I wholeheartedly agree with that, Michelle. I think that at the end of the day, we probably are only using about 20% of what the systems are truly capable of. And yeah, Sonny Sharma, good Monday morning, orange shirt gang. He is correct. It is a great Monday morning. I hope you guys all enjoyed your weekend. We had some freight moving throughout the weekend, had a little trade show delivery happened out there. And it's, if you've never delivered into a trade show before, and I'll just kind of talk about this before we get into our articles here. I'll ask a ton of questions, right? Because if you've never delivered in there, there are so many little intricacies that you can come across in that, and you want to set your drivers up for success, because like this one that we had done, I mean, it even went as far as we needed to provide light and heavy scale tickets for it, which that might be a common thing, but this was the first one that I had seen in the hundreds of trade show deliveries that I've done. And then, the marshaling yard was like 30 miles away from the actual show and everything. But again, in that planning stage of these loads, you guys, if you're going to do it, because trade show freight is very common out there, and you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you accept and bid on one of these loads and then you don't know how to execute upon that. So, fortunately my customer had all of their ducks in line, and it was it was an easy execution piece out there. But if you haven't, um, and say you have a customer who's never delivered to a trade show before, I always find out about the marshaling yard, find out about the requirements for the marshaling yard, where it's at, get even a site contact from there, and then see if there's a map even from where the marshaling yard is to the convention center, and then go in there, go as far as see if they have a site contact at the actual convention center itself, if you could, because there's just a decent amount of little hurdles you might have to jump through, and you want it to, because like these trade shows, and I think like a lot of it opened up my eyes when I went to Con Expo earlier this year in Vegas. It's like a logistics feat, right? But if you have your stuff in order, your drivers it'll be a quick, seamless process, knock on wood, for the most part, for them to show up at the marshaling yard, check in, have everything checked off, booth number, everything, and then they get to go to the convention site itself, get offloaded. And, it's one of those things where you can really come through with a lot of your customers, and you don't want to shy away from those opportunities. So, for me, marshaling yard instructions and everything else. And yeah, you can also reach out to Papa Freight here if you guys need any further insights on the marshaling yard experience out there, when you can sit there from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. Yeah, I've heard some and I've experienced some horror stories out there with that as well. This one was fairly seamless overall, from the marshaling yard experience to getting offloaded and paperwork and everything. But yeah, I've definitely heard some on the other side of the spectrum there. But again, that project freight, that freight that you want to break in the door with, it's not as complex as a lot of people try and make it out. And who knows, maybe I'll get one of my friends on here who does a ton of trade show freight, and we'll do an interview on that. If you're watching this or listening to this on the replay and you specialize in trade show freight, who knows, Steven, maybe you can come on here and talk about that. We can do a podcast on it. But even if Steven doesn't have time because the dude's very, very busy and you want to talk about trade show freight and kind of how you organize it, I'd like to do a podcast on that. So, yeah, hit me up. Thomas says, completely agree, man. There are some great companies that are participating, very bullish on sales dash CRM and vendor flow. Going to be interesting to see. Adolfo Rodriguez, buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás, señor? All right, let's get down to some articles here. Some ones I got these on Friday, a couple of them, and I'm going to start off with my absolute favorite topic to talk about. Once I thought AB5 was out of the news, lo and behold, another article breaks about it. This article is from freightwaves.com. Once again, California tells a court AB5 isn't disrupting trucking. State's latest filing in response to an amended request by the CTA and OIDA for injunction. Let me see here. Injunction, blocking independent contractor law. With the next freight-related legal battle in California centered on a request for a new injunction to block independent contractor law AB5 from being implemented against trucking, California is arguing that AB5 is not having an impact in that sector. California's Attorney General, in a recent filing in response to amended preliminary injunction request by the California Trucking Association and OIDA, said that disruptions and burdens predicted by the CTA have not materialized. Drivers are still driving, ports are functioning, and packages and freight are being delivered. If these arguments sound familiar, it's because it's the second time the state of California has made them. The AB5 passed in 2019 at its core for ABC test for determining whether a worker should be classified as an employee. For trucking, it's in the B prong of the ABC test that is problematic. As it says that independent contract is a worker who performs work that is outside of the usual course of hiring entities' business. And that can be a tough case to make for trucking companies hiring independent truck drivers. The CTA and OIDA first asked for a new preliminary injunction in January against implementation of AB5, and then it was implemented after the Ninth Circuit Appellate Court in 2021 overturned the injunction. CTA was the plaintiff, OIDA was an added intervener in the case. Goes on to say that the new filing comes after the CTA and OIDA's amended request for injunction was brought in, among other things. Lorena Gonzalez, who is a former state assemblywoman and is now the California labor leader, those comments were cited as suggesting that the trucking was singled out of AB5 enforcement when so many other industries were exempted from the law. I think California trucking has, let me see here, has not descended into chaos since becoming the law of the land. And then the court hearing this case is the same federal court that handed down the original injunction blocking AB5 from implementation of AB5 in trucking. Judge Benitez continues to oversee the case, which was fully litigated. The only thing that comes out of it so far has been the injunction that would affect 30 months, killed by the Ninth Circuit of Appeals. This is one of those situations, and I'm trying to find some other stuff, but I think that it's just one of those fights across the board that it's not going to, I don't think it's going to go away. I truly do, because I think that it's only going to replicate in other states and more states across the nation. Which, again, I've said this on this show numerous times. I'm going to say it again. I am vehemently against AB5, 1000% against AB5. I think that it is an absolute attack on small business. It's an absolute attack on the free market and the pursuit of happiness in this country, because this literally does not allow you to start a business. It truly doesn't. It removes the independent contractor from the industry of trucking and others as well, right? Because it's not just trucking that the independent contractor classification will fall into. If you're a hairstylist or a barber or a tattoo artist or a massage therapist and you're an independent contractor, you can no longer be in business, essentially, is what it boils down to. But citing documents that were out there, The state said that previous misclassified truck drivers who are now classified in employees attested in sworn declarations that they saw no change to their type of work or how the work is performed. But that argument, but it's the arguments about equal protection and potential and let me see here, potential animus from Gonzalez that were needed by the state to respond out there. Let me see. Exemptions from AB5, which at a glance appear to not follow any pattern. Hairdressers, got a break. Sorry. So what I said earlier was false. But hairdressers got a break, and surgeons did, was to avoid creating unnecessary uncertainty for workers long and lawfully classified as independent contractors. The CTA and OIDA do not make any serious attempt to show that workers in the exempted professions are similarly situated to motor carrier drivers. In arguing against the charge, the state cited Gonzalez's statement that AB5 needed to be applied to trucking because drivers act a lot like employees. Rather than demonstrate this, the statement underscores the legislator's purpose out there. A list of other industries that AB5 covers to address worker misclassification. The legislator was concerned that AB5 and its exempted, rational, legitimate. All right, I'm just going on. There's some other stuff as well about the original injunction and blocking some stuff. But, I look at it like this. I am just not a fan of any governing body telling us what we should or shouldn't do in any situation. My dad was an independent contractor. He owned his own trucking company. He had his own MC. He had his own everything, but he leased on. He was a leased on owner operator. He was technically an independent contractor for a long time. He owned his own business. He did all of that, but he did it because, at the end of the day, he was not going to be told what to do, right? Like he owned his own equipment. He was just leased on. And then this is, he said, like, and I get the need for worker protection, right? Like I want to be very, very clear about that because there are some companies that take advantage of this stuff, right? That are looking to skirt the system. I'm not saying that isn't happening, but what I am against is people not being able to pursue their dreams because of this law. Like, what is this actually? How does this add more? How does this better the economy? How does this add more jobs to the economy? That's essentially seemingly struggling. How does this help people find more work? Is what I want to always see, and I just don't see it. Right, when you take away somebody's ability to create a business and to operate in a way that they seemingly have for a very long time, it's just the government sticking their hands in where they shouldn't. At all. I'm against this. I'm always going to be against an AB5 style of ruling because at the end of the day, it's not about worker. It's not about worker protection. Like really, when it boils down to it, it's really not. It's as with a lot of things, follow the money, you guys. That's all I'm going to say in this because I want to get to the other articles. But follow the money. What adds more tax revenue to the state? Having an independent contractor or an actual W-2 employee? Because there are no tax write-offs as a W-2 employee if you own your own truck, but there are if you may or may not own your own business. But that article, you guys, is from FreightWaves. Once again, California tells court AB5 isn't disrupting trucking in the state. Let me see here. Michael Sternberg says Kelly Gold specializes in trade show freight and would be worth connecting with. Would love that. Kelly, if you're listening to this, I'd love to connect about that. Zena, have a productive week as well. John Radvansky, chilly North Texas, high 67 today. Let me see here. Sunny Sharma, it doesn't. Oh, Sunny, you're great. All right. Next article we're going to break down is from ttnews.com, and it's a fiscal year 24 transportation funding bill awaits consideration, and that the campaign for a new speaker in the U.S. House of Representatives has sidelined legislation designed to fund the Department of Transportation through fiscal 2024. Floor debate on the transportation bill has been scheduled for earlier this month. The legislation is meant to avoid funding disruption for most operations. Before the House leadership debate, Congress cleared for President Biden a short-term appropriation funding fix, which is keeping the federal government operating through the 17th of November. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy ousted earlier this month, and a majority of Republican caucus announced, let me see here, that leader Steve Scalise for the Chambers job. Obviously, over the weekend, Scalise, late last week, he removed himself from it, and now Representative Jim Jordan is running for House Speaker and attempting to win over his colleagues. Okay, let me see here. I just want to kind of stick to, I don't want to talk about all the politics of this article, but House Republicans have an interim leader out there. The House committee passed an appropriations bill that would dedicate nearly $1 billion for the FMCSA. It would also fund safety programs, infrastructure grants, and supply chain improvements. Top Republicans called on lawmakers to approve the legislation before the mid-November funding deadline. We are focused on our troops and our veterans, as well as defending our homeland and our interests abroad. At the same time, the bills we have drafted demonstrate that we must stop government overreach and the out-of-control spending the last few years. Amen to that, said House Appropriations Chairwoman Kay Granger. Those are the most conservative appropriation bills in history. Meanwhile, the Senate version would provide $98 billion for the Department of Transportation and Housing and Urban Development, and that would dedicate $20 billion for the FAA, $16 billion for the FTA, and $3 billion for the FRA. How many three-letter agencies do we have? Geez. And the Senate would also provide the FMCSA with nearly $1 billion. And I think that, again, the funding of these bills, I'm going to remove any politics from this statement, but like there is a massive importance out there. I think we can all see that, to have funding in place for all of our agencies that are out there. Whether you think there are too many of them or not is irrelevant, but the fact of the matter is we need this funding in place. We need this stuff done. So hopefully they get the speakership passed. Hopefully Jim Jordan gets in the role here soon, so we can get on to like actually functioning, right? Because a lot of it is the what's next effect. That's where like my mind goes with a lot of this stuff, because it's like we already have enough battles going on in the transportation industry as a whole. We need to have a fully functioning funding in place to ensure that this stuff continues to operate. I don't want to say like as normal, but like you guys get what I'm saying, right? We need this stuff done. So hopefully Jim Jordan gets the nomination solidified here. He gets put into the speakership, the House Speaker role, so we can get this up and running here, and we can get these transportation bills in place, so we don't have any disruptions out there, because that's, we don't need that, right? Like as we saw the FAA and other government agencies that are underneath the Department of Transportation, we don't want any of that stuff to get affected, right? We don't want any airline delays, air freight delays. We don't want any of that stuff. So good article from ttnews.com, and it's FY24 transportation funding bill awaits consideration. Hopefully we get all of that stuff up and done here. Bob Haas-Roddy, have a great day to you as well. Let me see here. Last article we're going to talk about is fleetowner.com, and its spot rates are the lowest in 3 years and moderate expectations for Class 8 trucks and trailers. There was another article that was broke this morning, kind of talking about the market as a whole, and I may or may not break that one down this week, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of us who are out there fighting for their business as a whole, a lot of the macro indicators of the industry, although relevant, aren't very applicable, right? And I know that you can, what if this or this happens, that's going to affect your bit. I understand. All right. I did, go to college. I have been doing this for a couple of days. But my thing is I got to, like, my clients, my customers pay me to find solutions, right? It doesn't matter what the market is. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. I got to find a solution for my customers' issues, just like I have to find a solution for my carriers, right? Finding that freight. And that's really what a lot of us need to focus in on the most, right? Is what can you do differently to add enough value? Because people are still adding providers, whether you're a broker or carrier, customers are still onboarding new providers. Freight is still moving. There is still a lot of stuff that is going on out there. What are you doing in your business to stand out in the crowd and to really better yourself? And that's what you really need to focus on with a lot of the macroeconomic indicators that are out there. Frankly, that's my main focus every day is how do I get better, right? Every shipment that I move, how do I get better? How do I improve? How do I build loyalty with my customers? That's what I'm looking for as a whole. But back to this article talking about that rates are down week over week for all equipment types, but flatbed saw the most significant drop since the summer. Not all news is negative, however. Spot rates for van equipment are still above levels from the spring, and these low spot rates, although low, are meeting seasonal expectations. I do want to say this as somebody who specializes in open deck and heavy haul. A lot of the price dropping that is happening out there is because volume is down exponentially because it is no longer in season for that freight. So that is what would explain that. I'm not justifying prices changing. I'm just stating the facts that that is one of the leading indicators on price fluctuations in the flatbed market because it is very, very seasonal. Anyways, FTR and Truckstop reported a 6.3 decline in past week's total activity. Volume was low, was also low to nearly 18% below the same week in 2022 and almost 25% below the same 5-year range. Total broker posted rates declined after rising roughly 2.5 cents the week before. This resulted in rates about 11% lower than the same week in 2022. And then the industry is responding to the volatile freight market out there. And it goes on to talk about, let me see here, moderate expectations for Class 8 trucks and trailers out there on the sales and everything. And that's going to be interesting to watch as well because people are still buying and everything else. But I think the spot market is always volatile, you guys. It really is. It can change at the drop of a dime. And this is something that a lot of individuals don't talk about in the freight media is that it's always volatile. It like legitimately, you could have a lane up right now for say $1,000, and then say the carrier something happens where it goes back out to the market. That same lane could now go for $2,000 or $2,200, and within a matter of hours, right? The spot market is always volatile. It's always going to be volatile. And I think that, the rates are not the same across the board. And, that's like, I understand the national average pricing that people put out there and publish, but that is not indicative to every single freight market that's out there. I still have lanes moving for well over $3 a mile in major freight markets that are out there. So again, tell me how that is, correlated to a national average of like $1.90 a mile when it's significantly higher than that in the actual market. So again, as you see a lot of these rates being published and a lot of this stuff being thrown out there, that's not everywhere. And I want you to be aware of that. You need to know how to navigate through this. You are going to see a lot of this pricing. I think that there's going to be a little bit more seasonal push here over the holidays. As always, to get ahead of a lot of this, to get the most accurate pricing, hit up my friends over at Green Screens. They're right up there. I use them literally every single day. Every single load that I move inside of my brokerage is one based on the pricing that we utilize at Green Screens. Greenscreens.ai/freight coach. They are going to get you the most accurate pricing out there to help navigate some of these ebbs and the flows of the spot market. But that article is from fleetowner.com. Spot rates are the lowest in 3 years. And again, you guys, at the end of the day, you got to control what you can control inside of your organization. Michelle says, how do those flatbed carriers balance out the seasonality? How do you find that many just rely on good rates during the good season and make up for that during slower times? Or to some find a way to go a different market or commodity from their standard stuff during the winter? Michelle, it really depends. I've worked with some carriers who park it during the winter, or they go and do something else over the winter, where a lot of them will have, or they stay local. I think that a lot of them, they balance out the seasonality of it, where it's just like with peak season, Michelle, where some days, for peak season, a lot of these shippers have, say, 30 to 40 shipments a day, but in non-season, they're down to like 15 shipments a day. So a lot of them can have that continuous freight that's moving out there. But the seasonality of it is very, very evident. And it's also, and that's another thing too. And Michelle, and I'm finding this out a lot more that I report on the industry is what is technically a flatbed load. Because there's some commodities that are out there that are shipped in drive-ins that need to be shipped on flatbeds. And it's very interchangeable out there. But I think like the overall market as a whole, a lot of it is, a lot of them are the consistency of the freight stays there. Like again, a lot of my freight that I move never makes it out to the spot market. We have a majority of our carriers that accept our freight, and it never makes it out to the spot market as a whole. So they're staying consistent. I hope that kind of answers your question. She also says that flatbed is interesting to me because there's so much weird stuff in there. I have to imagine it's hard. Yes. And that's the thing is there's a lot of intricacies in there. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. I'll be back tomorrow. The links to those articles will be up on the YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay of this, which will be available on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. But that is going to be it for today, you guys. I'll be back tomorrow. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Rank the show out there. Get it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.